Good evening. My name is Captain Miola. I'm with the Elizabeth Police Department, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the evening, and I've just left a community meeting. I've been monitoring the radio, and I heard a call for assistance at the Beat nightclub. There seems to be an active shooter situation there, and the suspect is shooting up the place in the name of terrorism. He currently has 30 hostages barricaded inside of the back of the club, and there's multiple fatalities that are reported. It's going to take me 5 minutes to get there, so right away, what I'm going to do is order all units to respond and to use a tactical approach when they do so. I'm also going to request immediate response by EMS, medics, some mutual aid partners, and North Star helicopters, making sure that they take a tactical approach as well. I'm going to notify our chief, the county prosecutor, the Attorney General's office, and the FBI, as well as the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. This is going to be a large-scale event. Let me just say this. I'm going to use an authoritative style of leadership, and I'm going to pick the most competent employee for the most important tasks, regardless of their rank. I'm also going to make sure that I have communications use a separate channel for this incident and to notify all other jurisdictions and as well as the ROC so that they can provide intelligence and notification support for us. I'm going to request that our SWAT unit respond and that they use their tactical weapons to try and bring this situation to a rapid conclusion. I'm going to want them to use whatever weapons they have, long weapons, heavy armor, some ballistic vests. I'm going to make sure that they have helmets and goggles and night vision so that we have a tactical advantage that way as well, since it's nighttime. And I'll also utilize drone technology so we can get eyes in there without risking officers' safety. Now, when I arrive on the scene, I'm going to make sure that I assist all the wounded patrons and set up a triage area far enough away that they're safe and to give them some treatment immediately. I'm also going to activate the ICS protocol, and I'm going to name myself as the incident commander. What the ICS protocol does is it provides me with more resources than I would normally have access to. It also provides for a unity of command for those resources, and it allows for improved communications through the use of common terminology. ICS is about interoperability, and there's going to be a lot of resources used to handle this situation. I'm also going to make sure that I establish a command post. I'm going to make sure that it's upwind of where the club actually is, so that in case we have to introduce some gases into the scenario that we're not affected by that. I'm going to assign one person, one officer to act as a scribe so he can document any of our actions for a later review. I'm also going to utilize two officers for communications. One will handle telephone communications and the other will handle radio communications, which will allow me to focus on the task at hand. I'm going to also make sure that the commanders of all the other units are assigned to the command post so that they can help me make competent command decisions and also to communicate those decisions to their respective resources and utilities. I'm going to quickly establish an inner and an outer perimeter. What the inner perimeter does is it allows the responding officers and essential employees to work the scene, and the outer perimeter provides a buffer zone between the public and that inner perimeter. I'm going to make sure that traffic officers are utilized on the perimeter to direct people away from the scene and also to assist with the evacuation of the survivors and also by helping to secure witnesses who are trying to flee. I'm going to set up a staging area. Now, the staging area has to be large enough so that it can receive all the different resources coming our way between mutual aid partners, fire departments, and such. I'm going to provide a safety lane from the staging area to the inner perimeter so they can get there quickly if they have to. And then I'm also going to assign a lieutenant to handle the logistics of the staging area. Finally, I'm going to establish a separate area in the staging area for the media and assign the public information officer there. I'm going to order all first responding units to engage the suspect and end this threat if it's possible. I'm going to also make sure that the public information officer sends out social media messages and alerts the media and the public to stay away from the area. I'm going to notify the area hospitals that there may be mass casualties coming their way, and I'm going to direct headquarters to contact the ME and put them on standby because there's supposed to be many fatalities. So when it's safe, we'll have them respond and take care of the dead. I'm going to request that hostage negotiators respond and begin their work to try and negotiate with the suspect to bring this to a peaceful conclusion. And I'm going to make them have them try and utilize texting with the suspect if it's possible, because that usually incorporates two hands and may give us a tactical edge if we need it. I'm going to quickly interview any survivors and witnesses to try and obtain some intelligence about what the scene is like inside the club. And I'm also going to make sure that the public information officer gives a preliminary interview with the media, give them some basic information, establish a partnership with them, because we're going to need them to help us to try and get the word out. I'm going to utilize any and all techniques to get eyes inside, including drone technology, because I want to know what the status is, and I want to be able to see things happening as they're changing. Making sure to update our chief and our county prosecutor with the status of the situation as frequently as I possibly can. I mean, also establish a reunification area so that people who do make it out of the club can reunite with their family members, who obviously are going to be very concerned in coming down to the scene. Now, it's a little bit later in the evening. It's about 1:45 a.m. and our SWAT unit has been able to neutralize the suspect. The hostages are found inside and unharmed, so we're going to make sure that we get them transported away from the scene and reunited with their families after they're cleared medically. But we've also located the suspect's van, which was parked and running, and inside we could see that there's possibly a suicide vest. So I'm going to contact our bomb squad and make them respond down there. I'm going to establish a safe blast zone so that people are far away from the van. I'm going to make sure that anyone near it is evacuated, who could be hurt by this. I'm going to assign investigators to determine if the suspect is part of a larger terrorist network or terrorist organization. I'm going to notify the county terrorist coordinator and submit a suspicious incident report to CT Watch. See if they can help us out with similar incidents or known associates of this particular guy. I'm going to make sure that the van is secured and processed, as is the rest of the scene around the club and inside, which could take a long time. So we're going to make sure that we have relief set up for the investigators and the officers, and make sure that we have food and water delivered and extra batteries for their radios to make sure that we can continue working this process continually. I'm going to conduct a social media notification and also hold a press conference to notify the public to stay away from that area by the blast. Now, after the incident is concluded, I'm going to make sure that I conduct a post-incident press conference to notify the public about the status of the investigation, what we know about the suspect, and our continuing investigation to that. I'm going to update all our organizations who have partnered with us about the status of the investigation first before I release it to the media, and I'm going to do that in strict compliance with Executive Order 69. I'm going to conduct a critical incident critique because I want to determine what did we do right, what did we do wrong, what equipment was needed or would have made the situation easier, as well as what tactics did we use and what can be changed or reinforced if we did something well. I'm going to make sure that the officers that responded undergo post-traumatic stress debriefing, and that's going to be within 24 to 72 hours after the incident. I want to make sure that my officers who had to deal with this are okay, and that they can go back into service and continue working without any lasting effects from this. I'm going to conduct a full policy review because I'd like to identify any training issues that would help us address how we responded, if we can respond better. I'm going to make sure that I write thank you letters to all the resources and mutual aid partners who helped us out with this, and there were many because this is obviously a pretty big event. If there's any officers who distinguished themselves during this incident, I'll make sure that I commend them, and I'll do that in public. And if there's any officers that may have fell short of our expectations, I'll make sure that we counsel them and retrain them, but I'll do that in private. I'm going to make sure that all the victims receive the support services, the victim notifications that are expected, and the full support of the law enforcement community. We don't want them to feel disenfranchised, or we don't want them to receive any perfunctory conclusions from any of our investigators. We want them to understand that, we want them to receive all of the services that they're due. I'm going to make sure that proper death notifications are made to all the people whose lives were lost, utilizing, obviously, at least 2 officers to make these notifications and having at least one of those officers in uniform. Now, that may be a little bit tough because of the number of officers that we're utilizing to conduct, all these various death notifications, but we'll make sure that if we can't get, enough cops, we'll have clergy or we'll have some family members help us out with these, making sure to notify adults, 18 years or older, and if they're not home, we'll make sure that we'll get word to a neighbor to let us know when they do come home. I'm also going to make sure that our investigators follow up on the suspects who may be affiliated with this particular suspect who, may have, future plans of similar attacks. We'll find out if this was a coordinated response by a terrorist organization or if there's any other targets that they may be considering, and making sure to, prevent any of those future targets from being hit. Do some target hardening, making sure that we notify all of the other vulnerable locations, how they can prevent any kind of future attacks. Now, obviously, this was involving a gay club, so we'll want to reach out to that community and make sure that, we get their input. Maybe we could do some target hardening with any establishments that are supporting the gay community. Let them know that they should be obviously at high alert, against future attacks. Now, in conclusion, I was tasked with developing and implementing a solution to a problem that had many challenges. In order to meet these challenges, I utilized various resources, both from within the police department, but also from outside of it. Now, in developing this response, I also utilized my education, my training, and my experience in order to develop this comprehensive response. While initially I focused on the problem at hand and how to respond to it, I also looked at some collateral issues. The reason for that is the goal here is to cure the disease and not just treat the symptoms. I also understand that training must be considered whenever there's a large-scale operation that has to be executed. Therefore, I commissioned a full review of our department with the entire command staff so that we can try and identify some training goals that can address any deficiencies that we may have had. Once we develop those training goals, I will make sure that they are implemented and I will monitor them for their effectiveness. If I determine that any of these changes need to be made, I'll make those changes and I'll evaluate them as well. The key here is to re-evaluate continuously so that you ensure that department goals are being met. Lastly, I'd like to get some feedback from the key stakeholders involved in this incident, because I'd like to, get their take on my handling of this response. I'll make sure that I hold a community meeting and a post-incident meeting with stakeholders so that we can determine what their feelings are about how we did. Let me just say that I'm really proud of the job that my officers and that my team did with this incident, and I'm confident that my response was appropriate in scope and effective in achieving the desired result. I'd like to thank you and for your time, and I'd like to arrange for a time to have a follow-up meeting to see if there's anything else that we could do for you. Thank you.